The Atlanta Braves end the road trip on a high note with a comeback win on Wednesday night thanks to a late home run for Orlando. Arcia, we'll talk about that and take a look around the league on this Through the League Thursday. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I am your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on Twitter at ShortstopBall. Also, make sure you check out my written work over at BravesToday.com. Make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves. Send in any questions, comments, or feedback that you have for the podcast. We do in our mailbag episode on Friday, so make sure you look out for the tweet from that main account so that you can submit your questions for that podcast. If you're new on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and that thumbs up button to help support the show. And I thank you for all the support that you give me. I'm hearing from a lot of you in the comment section on YouTube. Let me know you're an everydayer, letting me know how much you enjoy the podcast, and that means the world to me. So thank you so much for those comments, and thank you so much for supporting Locked On Braves and making it your first listen of each and every day. On today's podcast, we're going to recap Wednesday's exciting 6-5 win over the Texas Rangers, the late inning heroics from Ozzie, Albies, Austin Riley, and Orlando Arcia. We'll talk about all that and Spencer Strider's outing as well. And then we'll do our Through the League segment on this Thursday, taking a look at some of the biggest stories around the league, including all the drama going on in the Yankees Blue Jays series, which has been pretty entertaining and funny to watch at times. But let's start with the Wednesday game, a 6-5 comeback win over the Texas Rangers, and the Braves win this series. And I say it like that because I don't think many fans feel like the Braves won this series with the way they played for much of it. I mean, they dominated on Monday, that's for sure, but for the majority of these last two games, it felt like the Braves were still fighting themselves. But in the end, they win this series, and they win against a very good team on the road. So a very impressive series win altogether for the Atlanta Braves. Any series win you can take helps salvage a road trip as well that would have just been absolutely devastating had they lost that game on Wednesday, come back home, get the off day on Thursday, so you got to sit on it a little bit longer, and then you got another tough stretch of games coming up as well. The Mariners, the Dodgers, the Phillies coming up here the rest of this month. So huge win. Can't overstate it enough how big it was to come back and get that win on Wednesday, what it means for that, again, that road trip, finishing it on a high note, having the off day, and then coming back home. And it was a game where, a lot of back and forth, and the Braves really had to battle. They went up 2-0 early on the Eddie Rosario home run. Then they fell behind 4-2, kind of cut back into it, got back within one on the Acuna home run, and then fell behind 5-3. So the bullpen allowed a run there, and then they came back, tied it up in the 8th inning, took the lead in the 9th inning. And I want to start in that 8th inning. And of course, like it typically does, it all starts with Ronald Acuna Jr. He gets a leadoff at bat and he gets a walk. And it almost seemed like they wanted nothing to do with Ronald Acuna Jr. in that at bat. 4 balls, all just way off the plate away. They didn't really want to give him anything to hit, which I can understand right now because he is on quite a roll. Did have one home run in this game, which we'll talk about, almost had 2. So he is just crushing the baseball right now. And with the way the guys behind him have been performing, Olsen, Riley, I know Ozzie's in the 3-hole for this particular game, but with the way those guys have been rather not performing behind him, it makes sense, I think, right now for a lot of teams to want to pitch around Acuna. And I think that's going to be something to watch until Olsen and Riley do get going. As do teams start to be a little bit more careful with Acuna? And do you see him take more walks? And does that lead to Acuna trying to be overly aggressive because, he doesn't want to take those walks. He wants to hit the ball and hit the ball hard. Now he does, and he's willing to take his walks for sure. And thankfully, long-winded way of saying he did that to start the 8th inning, which was great to see. And then he stole second base. And I mentioned this on yesterday's podcast. I know you want to wait on that 2-run homer and you run the risk of getting thrown out and caught stealing. And then, Olsen's 2-run homer turns into a solo, or Riley's home run or Murphy or whoever's hitting behind him, it's a huge risk. And when you got those big home run threats hitting behind Acuna, that you cause yourself a run by getting caught stealing. But I got to see Ronald go more. When he gets a single, he gets a walk. I mean, I want to see him go every time, but because of all the double plays the Braves have hit into this year, and they hit into some more in this game as well, I got to see Ronnie getting on base and running and taking that double play out of the equation for those bats behind him. And he did that. He got on with the walk, stole second base. Olson did strike out after I saw some really good signs on Tuesday. It was back to Matt Olson really struggling to make contact on Wednesday night. Obviously was facing a very good starter in Nathan Eovaldi, but rough night for Matt Olson at the plate. And then Ozzie batting third with a right-handed starter. Very interesting decision. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't love it, but with Sean Murphy not in there, I guess I somewhat understand it. I've been a long believer that put Ozzie in the 5-6 hole in the lineup and just let him stay there. I just think that's where he excels the most. He's not an on-base guy. He's somebody who's going to drive in runs, give you the extra base hits, the home runs, the doubles. Put him in the 5th, 6th spot in the batting order and just leave him alone. But he did. They did bat him third, and it ended up turning out good because he got a hit in that 8th inning that drove in Acuna, made it a 1-run game again. And then Austin Riley, another great swing in this series. He took a curveball down and was able to get under that pitch, drive it into the left center field gap, got a 13-degree launch angle again on that pitch down. That's what we've been wanting to see from him. He's really struggled with the off-speed stuff, particularly down and in. This one's more down middle. When I first saw it, I thought it was more down and in, but it was really more down middle. But either way, able to get under that ball, drive it into the left center field gap to score Ozzie from first base and tie this game. You combine that with a home run he hit in game 1 of this series, a line drive out to right center. So a couple of really good swings, and I think some encouraging signs for Austin Riley. I think there were encouraging signs for Riley and Olson in this series. Like I said, Olson on Tuesday night, some of the better swings I've seen from him in a while. And then, again, you couple the home run on Monday and the double on Wednesday with Riley, 2 really good swings. So, again, we're looking for anything that we can point to say these 2 guys are getting ready to break out of their slump. In this series alone, Riley doubled his doubles total and home run total for the month of May. He has just 2 doubles and 2 home runs in the month of May. So, again, looking for signs of him to get going. Then in the 9th inning, Orlando Arcia, opposite field home run, changeup. He had just fouled off a pretty good changeup low and away, and then pitcher went back to it. Apologize, I don't remember the name of the pitcher, but went back to it and left it up, and Arcia was able to get the bat on it. Hit it 399 feet the other way with an exit velocity of 103.1. I mentioned this on the postcast with Grant McCauley. He has been better since coming back. In April, he hit 341, 400, 537 before the injury. Since coming back in the month of May, he's slashing 355, 412, 410. 510 with coming back from that injury. So he has been better since coming back from the microfracture in the wrist. I mean, I just can't say enough good things about Orlando Arcia, what he's done defensively and at the plate. Now it becomes a matter of, do you move him up in the lineup while he's hot and while some of those other bats are struggling? You hate to really mess with a good thing right now, but he's been probably the 3rd best bat all season for the Atlanta Braves behind Acuna and Sean Murphy. Early home runs in this one, I mentioned Eddie got it started with a 2-run homer that snapped Nathan Eovaldi's scoreless streak at 29 2/3 innings. So when I say the Braves faced a pretty good pitcher on this night, they did, and we'll talk about that when we look at some of the top pitchers from around the league here in a minute. Acuna gave the Braves their 3rd run with just a pedestrian 429-foot home run. Chump change for Ronald Acuna Jr. He actually, didn't get to celebrate this one right out of the box. He wasn't sure as soon as he hit it, like some of these others. So, again, another home run for Acuna and hit one in 4 straight games now. And he's currently on pace for 40 home runs and 60 stolen bases. Never been done before. And he is on quite the home run binge right now. Let's hope that continues. Still just 1-7 with runners in scoring position. Did have some clutch hits by Ozzie and Austin Riley with runners on base, which was encouraging to see. But I talked yesterday about the Braves' struggles with runners in scoring position and how they're due to have some good luck there. If you didn't give that a listen, make sure you go back and do so. I thought it was a really good breakdown of the Braves' ability or lack of ability with runners in scoring position this year, but how their hard hit percentage, their hard hit rate with runners in scoring position was due to see a turnaround. Looking at the start for Spencer Strider, not a great one for him. Obviously, he is allowed to have a bad start every now and then. Started out great. Everything looked fine. But overall, when you look at his final line, 5 innings, 6 hits, 3 walks, 4 earned, 7 strikeouts, and 2 home runs and 88 pitches. He did have 19 whiffs, 37% whiff rate, which is good for a normal pitcher, but for Spencer Strider, not necessarily his best performance. Just 26 called strikes and whiffs. Again, very good for a normal pitcher, but Spencer Strider's not a normal pitcher. He is a Cy Young candidate. He is one of the best, if not the best pitcher in all of baseball right now. He's usually well over 30 called strikes and whiffs. So again, not his best outing, but great to see the offense pick him up because he has picked the offense up so many times in his young career. He threw 19 sliders in this one. Not a single one was put in play. 11 swings against his slider, 4 whiffs, 1 called strike. So the rest of them were just foul balls. So I'm going to be honest. I don't want to be too overly critical here, and I don't want anybody to run away with this one. I did not love the pitch selection from Travis d'Arnaud behind the plate tonight, whether it was with Spencer Strider, who clearly lost command of that fastball in the 3rd and 4th innings, not going to that slider a little bit more, and then AJ Minter, which I'll talk about here more in a second. But as far as Strider goes, nobody put the slider in play. He did throw more changeups. I like to see that change and those calls from Travis d'Arnaud going away from the fastball, which he was struggling with. Threw 11 changeups, 2 whiffs on 4 swings and 2 called strikes with the changeup. Just a 90.3 mile per hour average exit velocity again, so not terrible for Spencer Strider. I went back and looked at all 6 hits allowed. The home runs to Adolis. The first one was just a fastball right down the middle. Adolis is a strong individual. He's going to hit that out the majority of the time. The second one was on a 1-2 pitch, and it was supposed to be a fastball down. He left it up, missing location. Adolis able to get to it and drive it out the other way. Again, very strong individual. The hit by Leotis Taveras, this is one I didn't love. It was a 1-2 pitch. Again, TDA called for a fastball up and in, and he threw it down and away and gave Leotis the opportunity to get the barrel on it and get a hit. The hit by Robbie Grossman, another fastball right down the middle. And then the hit by Josh Smith, a bit of a jam job, infield single, just tough luck there. But, all the majority of the hits there were just a missing location, particularly with the fastball. He just lost command of it after that 2nd inning. Bullpen, does the job. I'll be honest, I don't feel all that comfortable whenever the bullpen doors open up at this point, but Chavez had a smooth 6th inning, came back out for the 7th, gave up the 1-out triple to Simeon. They bring in Minter, and this is where I have some issues with the way Travis d'Arnaud kind of called things here. He clearly didn't read my article over on Braves Today, but he calls for a first pitch cutter to Corey Seager, who is notoriously an aggressive swinger, and he leaves the cutter over the middle, which again, I've talked about. The cutter's not good enough, and Corey Seager rips it to center, 380 feet, 105.5 miles per hour off the bat. Luckily, Michael Harris was able to run it down, even though that wasn't the greatest route in the world, but his speed makes up for it. He makes a catch. It is a sac fly, scores the runner. And then TDA calls 3 more sliders to Nathaniel Lowe. Now, these were off the plate. The first 2 were off the plate for balls. The third one was just on the edge away, and he got him to roll over on it. But still, I think that cutter has to be a pitch that you throw right now when you're ahead in the count, and you can throw it off the plate to try to get a swing and miss. It's not a pitch I think he needs to use very often early in counts. It's just not a great pitch for him, and I don't know what else to say. I don't know what the Braves are missing on this. Go look at the stats. The cutter's just not that effective. Nick Anderson walked a 1-out walk, but otherwise was solid. Iglesias fell behind the 8-hole hitter 3-0, but was able to come back, work a solid clean inning, which he needed after Sunday. Threw a beautiful slider to Marcus Semien to get the strikeout, the final out of the game. So overall, great job by the bullpen. All right, next we'll take a look through the league, look at the standings right now, talk about some of the biggest news and some of the league leaders. Before we do that, let me tell you about Birddogs. I'm fortunate to work from home, and they sent me a pair the other day of their shorts, and they are fantastic to wear. I've been wearing them ever since. They're great. They feel comfortable, and they're so versatile as well. Like I said, I work from home. I also run the kids here and there, and it's great to have a pair of comfortable shorts that I can wear for just about any occasion. What I really enjoyed about them is they're cool. And, living in the deep South, being able to have some clothes that help you feel cool is certainly a big plus. And I definitely feel that with the Birddogs shorts that they sent me. So if you're looking for that, need that type of comfortability, flexibility, versatility, then Birddogs are definitely a great fit for you. Go to birddogs.com/lockedonmlb. When you enter the promo code LockedOnMLB, they'll throw in a free custom Birddogs Yeti style tumbler with every order. Again, that's birddogs.com/lockedonmlb. Enter the promo code LockedOnMLB. The Braves will be back in action on Friday night against the Seattle Mariners at 7:20 p.m. Eastern. We'll see if they can carry that momentum over from Wednesday's comeback win. Catch every pitch of the Braves' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Braves. It's our Thursday through the league segment. We'll talk about everything going on around Major League Baseball. On Friday, we'll have our mailbag podcast, so make sure that you send in your questions for that. Go through the divisions real quick. Obviously, in the NL East, Miami is the only team with a winning record over the last 10 games. Pretty interesting there. They are in second place in the NL East, 5 games behind the Atlanta Braves, the only other team in the NL East with a winning record. Mets are 6.5 games back at 21-23. The Phillies are 7 games back at 20-23, and the Nationals 9 games back at 18-25. So luckily, Braves haven't been playing great lately. They're going through this tough stretch against good teams, and other teams in the NL East haven't really taken advantage to this point. Other division standing, Rays up 3.5 games on the Orioles in that tough AL East. The Twins are up 3.5 games on the Tigers and 4 games on the Guardians in the AL Central. The Rangers are now just 2 games up on the Astros in the AL West after the Braves won that series. The Brewers have overtaken the Pirates in the NL Central, and don't look now, but the Cardinals are 8-2 in their last 10 games, and they're playing better baseball. Dodgers are on top in the NL West. Diamondbacks are 3 games back. The Padres are 3.5 games back, or they were 3.5 games back last week. They are now 8 games back. Tough times over there for the Padres, who had a team meeting on Wednesday. We'll see what that does. Manny Machado also has a fracture in his hand that he's trying to play through. So tough times over there for the Padres. We'll see if they can get it going. Power rankings for this week: Rays, Dodgers take over the NL lead over the Braves. Braves at 3, Rangers, Blue Jays, Orioles, Yankees, Astros, Twins, Brewers. Those are your MLB power rankings for this week. League leaders, this week we're going to look at expected stats. So we're going to start with xWOBA, expected weighted on base per average. This uses exit velocity, launch angle, and sprint speed to determine what a batter would have on the ball that they put in play, not taking defense into effect. Ronald Acuna Jr., as you might imagine, leads this category at 487. Sean Murphy is second at 453. Then it's Aaron Judge at 444, Vlad Jr. at 427, and Yandy Diaz at 423. Worst trade maybe I've ever made. I traded Yandy Diaz in my fantasy baseball league, and he has been absolutely great for the Rays this season. Expected slugging percentage, Acuna. Expected slugging percentage for Ronald Acuna Jr. is 713. It's just unreal. Judge is at 694, Murphy's at 644, Matt Chapman 613, and Vlad Jr. at 603. I want to give an honorable mention to Jorge Soler as well, an expected slug of 586. I know everybody still loves Jorge Soler and hoping maybe he finds his way back to this team, but he had a walk-off home run this past week as well. Expected batting average, Acuna 357. Tells you what he's doing right now isn't luck that his XBA is still that high. It's about the same as his regular batting average. Acuna's not getting lucky. He's just hitting the ball extremely hard, making really good contact. Bo Bichette's XBA is 339, Luis Arraez 325, Vlad Jr. 319, and Freddie Freeman 319. Braves fans don't want to hear that right now with the way that Matt Olson's been swinging. Now, you look at the pitcher side of things, expected batting average against pitchers. Ohtani is first at 171, Strider second, 182, Darvish 203, Joe Ryan 203, Shane McClanahan 205. Joe Ryan's a pitcher I haven't really watched a lot of, but he has been one of the better pitchers. He's definitely right there in that AL Cy Young race with the way he's pitching for the Twins. ex-WOBA for pitchers. So same thing as hitters, but on the pitching side of things, Joe Ryan at the top of this list at 231, Strider second, 259, Drew Rasmussen, 264. Unfortunate news for Drew Rasmussen. Looks like he's going to be on the 60-day IL. I don't know if he'll be back this year. Tough news for him. He was having a great season. He was also on my fantasy team, so tough news for me personally, but really hate that for Drew Rasmussen, a really good pitcher. Great stuff. Drew Smiley, 265, ex-WOBA Braves fans. Probably don't want to hear that either. Eduardo Rodriguez, 266. And then expected ERA, Joe Ryan, again, at the top of this list, 216. Strider's at 240. Eduardo Rodriguez, 260. Rasmussen, 281. And Nathan Eovaldi, 283, who the Braves just faced. News from around the league. The biggest stories from this past week obviously surrounds the drama between the Yankees and Blue Jays. First game of that series, the Blue Jays announcers were talking about Aaron Judge peeking into the dugout in a couple of his at-bats before hitting home runs. My personal take on it is, yeah, something was going on there. I don't necessarily think it's illegal, but I think somehow they must have picked up on something that the pitcher and catcher were doing. I don't know how you do that with PitchCom these days, but you don't just peek into the dugout like that. I mean, and he did it twice. Something was going on there. I don't know what it was. I don't necessarily think it was illegal, but something was going on there for sure. Blue Jays were complaining about where coaches were staying in the box on the field, which no coach ever stays in the box on the field. That led to grown men yelling at each other during the game about staying in a box, which I just found completely hilarious, that you got grown men saying, yelling at people to stay in their box. Apparently the Blue Jays manager called one of the Yankees managers fat boy. It has been a wild series between the Yankees and Blue Jays. And if that wasn't enough, then Domingo Germán got caught with sticky stuff on his hand and got ejected from the game, and this was after the Judge incident. So now everybody's calling the Yankees cheaters. It's just been a wild, wild series between these two. The Yankees won the first two. Blue Jays had a walk-off hit on Wednesday night, and this series is not over. You get another opportunity to watch the drama unfold on Thursday night. So it has been just a wild, wild series between the Blue Jays and Yankees this past week. Youth movement for the Mets is in full effect. They already had Francisco Alvarez and Brett Baty up. Now they called up Mark Vientos, who had a big home run for them on Wednesday, and their comeback win in extra innings over the Rays. So I mentioned this before the season started. I like the Mets' chances because I like the youth that they have coming up offensively, but they need their starting pitching to stay healthy, and they need some help in the rotation for sure. But you are starting to see this youth movement for them, which I think is going to help out their lineup a ton. Great news for Liam Hendriks, White Sox reliever. He's nearing a return less than 6 months after he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. That's going to be a great return for him, which could happen as soon as this weekend. So that's great news. Love to hear that for Liam. Dodgers rookie James Outman. He has 2 grand slams this year. I think he's probably the front runner for NL Rookie of the Year right now. I don't know how the Dodgers keep finding these kids. It's really not fair. But James Outman's been great for them. Nolan Arenado hit a home run in 5 straight games. Acuna's just one behind him right now, but Arenado's getting hot. I don't think it's much of a coincidence that the Cardinals are getting hot at the same time. Jack Flaherty also had a nice pitched game the other day as well, with Wilson Contreras catching. So Cardinals were the drama last week. This week it's the Blue Jays and Yankees, but Cardinals have put that behind them. They're playing good baseball now. Trevor Bauer getting lit up in Japan. And I only really mentioned that because I had a lot of you in the offseason asking me if the Braves should take a flyer on Trevor Bauer. I kept saying no, and now he's getting absolutely torched in Japan right now. Reds call up infielder top prospect Matt McClain. Reds are going to be a really fun team, I think, here, maybe by the end of this season. They got maybe the top prospect in all of baseball, and Ellie De La Cruz, who could be coming up soon. Encarnacion Strands at AAA as well, could be their first baseman by the end of the season. They already have some interesting pitching prospects. Hunter Green, Graham Ashcraft up right now, Nick Lodolo as well. So I think the Reds are going to be a fun team pretty soon. I hope so. I really do like that franchise. Had a great time. Me and my family went to Cincinnati for a game. So I'm kind of somewhat a Reds fan as well, I guess you could say. I really hope to see them turn things around. Angels designated reliever Ryan Tepera for assignment. If you were looking for the Braves to pick up a reliever and maybe stash him in AAA for depth, I think that could be an option there. I think there's probably going to be plenty of other teams looking to Ryan Tepera. But did want to at least mention that. And Dustin May out for at least a month with an elbow injury for the Dodgers. Pitching injuries are up. I know somebody asked me in the last mailbag if it's related to a pitch clock, timer. Again, the article I read on the Athletic, who went deep into the stats of it, there's no statistical data to point to that. And pitcher injuries in minor league baseball last year were down with the pitch clock. So it's hard to tell right now, but pitching injuries are just off the charts at the moment. And we've really seen this trend for several years now, which is why I hesitate to just blame it on the pitch clock. But Braves are obviously feeling it. A lot of teams are feeling it right now. It's just pitcher injuries are up. And they've been, again, I think they've been going up for years and years. I think some of it goes back to the COVID year and having that shortened season and then trying to work back up to that full workload, I think has a lot to do with it as well. But hate to see all these pitching injuries affecting the game of baseball. All right, next, speaking of pitching, I'll tell you who's going to start for the Braves this weekend and when could we see the return of Michael Soroka. We'll discuss that next. Sorare is a revolutionary fantasy baseball game, and telling you about it for a while. Marketplace that transforms fans into owners with officially licensed digital cards featuring players from across all 30 MLB teams. I've been playing it all year long. Just got my new cards this week after my rewards for the first set of this week. They do have 2 sets each and every week, a 4 and 3 day cycle. Some more opportunities to win rewards like scarcity cards, game tickets, merchandise, signed jerseys, meet MLB stars, all of that. Prizes vary depending on the level of competition, but it's a lot of fun competing with other cards, building these lineups, competing against other players. Head to sorare.com/lockedon. That's SORARE.com to draft your team of free player cards, set your lineup, and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, if you haven't already, make sure you use our login, our URL, SORARE.com/locked on to begin your journey today. It's so rare. All right. As always, words are getting hard for me here at the end of the segment. Apologize for that. But I do want to get to a little bit of news before we get out of here on this Thursday. Bryce Elder will start for the Braves on Friday to start that series with the Seattle Mariners. Then they could go with Charlie Morton on Saturday and Jared Schuster on Sunday if they want to. They haven't announced that yet. We'll see what they have in mind. Are they going to go with another bullpen game? Do they call up Dylan Dodd? He's eligible to come back this weekend. He hasn't pitched since Sunday, so I think, he could have an opportunity. They'd have to remove somebody from that bullpen, and there's not a lot of guys out there with options that you'd want to send down. So we'll see what happens there. Dodd obviously wasn't great in his 2 starts last week either. Not a great situation for the Braves overall, but we'll see how things pan out. They could technically go Elder, Morton, Schuster, Strider, and then they would need somebody for the second game of that Dodgers series, whether that would be a bullpen game or Dodd, or could it be Michael Soroka? And I watched the game on Wednesday with Gwinnett, an afternoon game, so I had an opportunity to sit down and watch it on my lunch break. 83 pitches for Michael Soroka. Struggled a little bit early in just about every game that I've watched, and I haven't watched all of his outings. It seems like he is struggling more in that first inning, trying to find that command. And then once he does, at least the last 2 outings that I've watched, really kind of settles in and starts to command it. And I thought his last 2 innings were the 2 best innings I've seen from him all year long. He was really in control, starting to get some swings and misses and some strikeouts, which I wasn't seeing him get in his previous starts. So for me, again, of the ones I've watched, this was clearly the best outing for Michael Soroka. I hate, he's 1 pitch short or 1 out short of getting through 5 innings, but he hit the last batter he faced. They were going back to the top of the order, and they really haven't let him throw much over 80 pitches in a start this year. I said coming into the season, they're going to slow play him It's a long season. He hasn't pitched in 2.5 years. You want him more pitching at the end of the year than you do right now. I think if he comes out and has one more start, like he did on Wednesday, where he just looked more in control, the actions looked more fluid. He looked like he was in a rhythm and a groove. You see him do that again, I think it's going to be hard not to call him up. And I think we're getting really close to the return of Michael Soroka. Keep everything kind of short here and simplistic. I think we're really, really close to seeing the return of Michael Soroka. It was the best I've seen him look all season. If he can do that, one, maybe two more times, I think the Braves are going to give him an opportunity. Off day on Thursday, so we'll have a mailbag podcast. Make sure you look for the tweet from _Braves so that you can submit those questions. The Braves will resume play on Friday against the Seattle Mariners at 7:20 p.m. Eastern. It will be Bryce on Bryce, with Bryce Elder going up against Bryce Miller. Catch every pitch of the Braves hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Braves. That will do it for this episode. Thanks so much for listening. Make sure that you follow the podcast on Twitter at _Braves. You can follow me at Shortstop Ball. Also, make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.